Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started and people can trickle in while if they're still waiting to join. But hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's presentation on growing knowledge, the power of school gardens at Lincoln Public Schools. My name is Lauren Smith, and I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska's Common Ground program. Conservation Nebraska's mission is to protect our state's natural legacy by educating the public, supporting communities, and increasing civic engagement, which we accomplish through locally led education efforts and community engagement projects to address local conservation concerns like this event tonight. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, there are a few rules to go over. For those joining online, your cameras will remain off and you will be muted throughout the presentation. Please type any questions you have in the chat or the Q&A section and we will answer those at the end of the presentation. Following the presentation, we will have a very brief survey that should only take less than a minute to complete. The survey helps support programming like this one, so we very much greatly appreciate you taking this time to fill it out. Tonight we welcome Katie Berck, the LPS School Gardens and Outdoor Learning Intern, who will highlight these unique outdoor spaces and the invaluable educational opportunities they offer to students and the community. And I will let her introduce herself and take it away.
Hi everyone. I'm Katie. I'm the Gardens and Outdoor Learning Intern with Lincoln Public Schools. I started this role about a year ago in February 2024. I am a senior at UNL. I'm in the Environmental and Sustainability Studies program, and then I also have a Fisheries and Wildlife minor. I grew up in Kearney, Nebraska, so I'm from Nebraska, but I'm not from Lincoln. So it's been crazy to experience how a school district as big as Lincoln's works. Um, Thank you to Conservation Nebraska for having me tonight. I'm really excited to get to share a little bit about LPS sustainability and then more about what we do with our garden program in general. So to start off, I'm just going to talk a little bit about LPS sustainability. So we work with all of the schools in Lincoln Public School District, which is about 70 buildings total. And then besides gardens and outdoor learning, we have initiatives in energy, water, sustainable transportation, waste, and then of course, environmental education. If you've heard of us before, it's probably from our waste program. That's what we're most well known for. We have standardized landfill and recycling containers in all of the buildings across the school district. And then we also have composting in all of our cafeterias as well. I added in a picture of our current or our summer internship team. I realized as I was making this that I don't have a picture of our full team right now. I guess we just don't take pictures, but this is pretty close. So we have our sustainability coordinator, Brittany Weiss, who has been with the department for about 10 years. She's honestly kind of started it up. And then on the left, we have she was at this time, she was our outreach intern, but she got promoted to our assistant sustainability coordinator. So I'm really grateful that she's staying on the team. She's a great addition. And then we also have a waste diversion intern, and then I'm the gardens and outdoor learning intern. So it's a pretty big internship program, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And then getting into what everyone is here to talk about, our gardens. So LPS, we have a lot of different types of gardens. We have gardens in different sizes, shapes, containing different things. So to start off, I kind of just wanted to briefly go over all the different types that we have. So we have a lot of vegetable gardens. These are some of our more like robust vegetable gardens. Some of the gardens are literally just like one garden bed. Like they don't all start out like this. Many of them start out very small and grow to be big, but I wanted to highlight some of our more robust ones. Lincoln Northeast in particular. So they have our FUSE program with LPS, which is our Food, Energy, Water, and Societal Systems program. So they do a lot with sustainable agriculture and sustainable living. So they have a really great garden over there that produces a lot of food in the summer, and then they usually just like leave it on the table and let the community grab it as needed. So it's kind of just a fun little free fresh produce for that neighborhood. And then Mickle Middle School and Elliott are also sites that are very community based as well in their management and the way that they function. A lot of schools also have pollinator spaces if they're looking for something that doesn't take as much maintenance or they're just not wanting to get into the vegetable side of things. And these are really where the size of the garden starts to differ. So like Randolph Elementary, it's literally just like a tiny, cute little rain garden. Norwood Parks is a really good example of using one of our community partners. We work with Nebraska Statewide Arboretum, and they had this program where they would help schools design custom gardens to fit whatever shape and size that they were looking for. So Norwood Park was able to receive one of those. And then we also have courtyard gardens, which I put in as its own thing because honestly, they have so many of their own struggles that well, benefits and challenges that I wanted to spend some time on them individually. So a lot of our schools have courtyards that are outdoor spaces only accessible through the inside of the school. And these are really great spaces to turn into outdoor learning centers because you don't have to worry about students running off somewhere and they aren't accessible by the public. So it's kind of just like a nice safe place for students to go and still be outside. But that also means that it's really hard to get volunteers into these spaces. It can be a little challenging to get supplies into these spaces because if you want to remulch your garden beds, you have to drag it through the inside of the school and then back into the courtyard. So they're a little extra work, but they're really fun to work with. I put Leffler Middle School in here in particular because they're a bit of a different example where they are actually a concrete courtyard rather than mulch or grass. So they really were looking to get a garden started in there to bring some greenery back into that space. Um, and then Maxey Elementary is always a really cool example because they have a pond. A few schools have a pond, and that also brings its own set of challenges because of dealing with the maintenance of a pond, making sure that it stays clean. But they get some pretty cool visitors in the spring, like ducks, for students to watch grow up, which is a pretty cool experience as well. And then I also wanted to share about our two new rooftop gardens that we have at our new high schools. These are a bit of different types of gardens because unlike all of our other ones, these were designed into the plan of the building. So we spend extra time to make sure that they're getting used to their fullest potential. But similar to the courtyard spaces, they have a little bit of a challenge of accessibility and that you have to go through the school to get to them. So we've been working on how to make them more accessible in the summertime. I've been working a lot with these spaces, so it's just been really fun to watch them grow. They're at our two new schools, Standing Bear and Northwest High School. And then I also wanted to mention that we have tower gardens. And while if you think of a garden, you're not going to think of a tower garden inside, but most schools have them and they're pretty cool spaces to be able to grow year round because we always run into the challenge of the school year being almost the complete opposite of their growing season, and that students can plant in the spring, but then they leave for the summer and they come back in the fall when everything's all um, matured, so they don't really see the full growing process. Tower gardens allow students to see that full growing process because you can grow anything indoors and also the plants grow a little bit quicker. So it kind of shows them that full experience as well. And then the biggest question that we get is how these gardens are maintained, who's taking care of them. And I think a really common misconception with my title as a garden and outdoor learning intern is that I'm out there seeding everything and pulling weeds. And while that would be really fun, I'm not. We actually put a lot of the responsibility back onto the schools to maintain the gardens. This can look like PTOs, student-led clubs, staff members, and then we also rely on community help a lot to maintain these gardens simply because we just don't have the capacity to be able to take care of them at a district level. So this is pretty much what I just said. Daily maintenance goes on to the school garden team. Some gardens are more community-based, others are more for school use only. This really just depends on the goals of the school with the space and then also their priorities. So if you have a school that really wants it to be community-based, then they're more likely to reach out for community help. We also use after school programs a lot for these spaces. And then in the summer programming and then volunteers are very helpful because since staff don't have to be there, it can be pretty easy for the spaces to decline during that time. And then I did add a little note. I don't know how many people on this are actually in Lincoln or know someone in Lincoln, but if you're interested in helping out at a school garden, if you're like, wow, this sounds really cool, how can I help out at one of these spaces? You can either reach out to the school or just reach out to us, and then we'll connect you to that school to make that connection because chances are, if you know of a school that has a garden, they would be more than willing to have the extra help. So I wanted to just run through some examples of specific schools and how they maintain their gardens, just to show you all of the variation that we see. So Sheridan Elementary is a great example of a school that's PTO run. So they are funded for and maintained by their PTO. They even have gone as far as to have an outdoor classroom chair whose job is specifically to work in the outdoor classroom space. And it is a very elaborate outdoor classroom space. They are lucky enough to have a specific section of their funding put aside for the space. They also receive a lot of help from neighbors. And when talking about getting students involved in the space, the students last season, I know they said that their fifth grade student council seed started the vegetable garden to try and get that experience in the classroom, but also being able to apply it to a nature-based learning experience. And then, as you can see from these pictures, they're helping clean up the garden and put it to bed in the fall. And Beatty Elementary is another really great example of a PTO and also community volunteers working to maintain a garden. We don't love to show Beatty as an example because it is probably the oldest and the most elaborate garden in LPS. There was an experienced master gardener who helped on the site for 15 years, and she was just in love with the space and she put so much time and energy into it. Not only just making sure that vegetables grew, but also working with the students in the school to establish garden nights and really getting the school, making the garden a part of their school culture. So they actually have, I was like creeping on their PTO page earlier today, and they actually have an art in the garden night coming up soon where they're going to have student performances and like an art auction in the garden space. It really is just a space for community and school events now. Also, another thing is that they have a lot of, oh, oops. They have a lot of like sitting areas, which is, I think, really helpful to how it's become such a big part of their school culture because student or schools will get gardens and they're super excited about it. And then they realize that they didn't get any benches or picnic tables for students to sit at. So they go out there and the students just have to stand. And so usually when we get a garden request, very shortly after, we'll see a request for picnic tables or benches. And I think that Beatty is a great example of being able to incorporate those into the space and make it actually usable for classes. And then I wanted to throw Southwest High in here as an example that those two schools were very, very elaborate and very well developed. Not all of our sites are like that. Those are kind of very extreme examples. Southwest High, on the other hand, is completely student run. So most of our high schools have some sort of a green club, whether it's an eco club, and um, the one at Southwest is called Hive Helpers, which I think is adorable. And they have a garden. They are primarily responsible for the garden, and they do a great job at maintaining it. Even though it's not elaborate, they still work really hard on it. And I think they are a great example of student involvement really being the forefront of this garden space. So we don't see a lot of student-run gardens just because most of our gardens are at elementary school or elementary schools, and you can't really tell elementary schoolers to go out there and take care of the garden themselves. So we love to see examples of this in our district. Lincoln High is another high school with a really nice garden, and this one was also partially student run. So the idea was proposed by students right after the conservation or I read Conservation Nebraska on my computer. Right after the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the restrictions that came with it, with stress and loneliness and isolation, they wanted to build a space that was wellness focused. And this came out of that, and it's built to be accessible. It's built for everyone. So the raised beds were designed specifically so wheelchair users could just go right up to them, unlike other raised beds designs that might not be as accessible. They also emphasize a lot of native plants and pollinators, and then all of the produce grown from this garden is given to a food pantry that they partner with. So I think this is a really great example, again, of students taking initiative and making a space really happen. And then finally, Elliott Elementary, I have been working a lot with them in particular because they have gone through a really big transition period and worked really hard to get back to being a great garden. So we see this a lot with schools where there will be one or two people who just love a garden and then they end up leaving for whatever reason and the space kind of falls off because that same motivation and drive isn't there. And that happened at Elliott, and we really, really didn't want to let this space go because what happens if no one takes care of it is the school will eventually say, just rip it out. We don't want it. It just makes us sad to look at it. And so when I joined last year, I was put on a task force, and I'm calling it a task force because it really was just a collaborative effort to bring the space back to life and make it a nice outdoor learning space at Elliott again. And so actually it was a really cool partnership with Lincoln High School where they had a little bit more excitement to garden than their garden could handle. So we brought some help from Lincoln High School teachers and also a club over there to work in the Elliott Garden, and they did a great job at maintaining the flowers and the native sections of this garden. And then the family literacy coordinator for Elliott Elementary, who works with the non-English speaking parents at the school, um, coordinated with parents to rent out beds. And I say that in quotations because they were free, but we rented them out to parents to use for the season, and they were able to grow fresh produce and just kind of do whatever they wanted with their specific bed. So it was a really great way to give them access to gardening and then also build a stronger connection with that school. And then Elliott is one of the schools who had after or summer programming over this summer. So their after school slash summer coordinator helped with student engagement and brought students into this garden space a lot as well. And then I wanted to talk about our community partners as well, because if you couldn't tell, a very common thread through all of that is that our community partners are very, very essential to what we do. We would not be able to have these successful gardens without their help. So we work with so many community partners, I would not be able to list them all tonight. So I'm just going to highlight a few key ones. So our CLC after school programs, that's our community learning centers, and they have a lot of after school programs at schools. So we work with them a lot because that means that they end up leading garden clubs at a lot of the participating schools and just working on that student engagement because if it's hard for teachers to get students out during the school day, the after school clubs are really where they make that connection with the outdoor space. They also have school neighborhood advisory committees, which provide a lot of community support for gardens because they have meetings where they bring in and not just people from the school, but also people from the neighborhood overall, people from nearby businesses who want to help out this school and make it as best as it can be. So we end up garnering a lot of support for gardens at those meetings. And then they also sometimes have grants available for gardens. So if a school is a CLC site and they have a garden, that is a very good possibility as to how they are able to pay for it is through the CLC program. And then Community Crops is a farmer and gardener organization here in Lincoln, and they are our go-to partner for garden expertise, new garden planning, connecting with local producers. If we have a question, or if any school has a question that has to do with gardening itself, that's who we go to. They have been working with us a lot on our farm to school grant, which I'll talk about later, and they've just been a really great partner for us. We work a lot with Kiwanis Club. They are our, um, they do a lot of work for us in terms of building. So they are amazing partners and they volunteer to help us build raised beds at so many schools. And they also even help us install drip barrel irrigation systems at some schools. So when we kind of need that labor aspect, we turn to Kiwanis and they're great partners. They're always ready to do the job. Arbor Day Foundation is more of a new organization that we personally are working with. We are very lucky that they are pretty much right in our backyard and centered here in Lincoln. So we've been able to work a lot with them recently on coordinating tree plantings at schools and then just generally working to increase tree education and appreciation in schools. They have a K through 12 tree campus program, which recognizes schools who complete 4 tree campus goals and then they get access to resources, grants, and other opportunities for being a tree campus recognition school. Last year was our first year that we participated in this program, and we had Cahoe Elementary and Lincoln Northeast become our first recognized schools. And we do have a few more schools lined up this year to become recognized. So we're really excited to be working with this program for the second year now. And then some additional resources. So as I said, we really aren't able to directly work with every single school. So we made these resources to kind of help them get over barriers that come with not being able to have access to someone who is super well versed in gardening if they're at a school where they're like, we really want to garden, but we don't know how to garden. Like, what do I do? We made these resources to help them out. So a few years ago, we collaborated with Community Crops to make some garden manuals, and these range from gardening basics, like when do I even start gardening? What should I plant? All the way to how do I get students out in the garden? How do I engage them in the space? How do I make this garden last beyond my time at this school? Questions like that. And then these resources are also all on our website. So it's not even just for our schools. Any school is able to access them. Anyone is able to access them and use these resources. So that was a really great collaboration that we had. And then I also keep an updated funding document for schools because another big problem that they run into is finding funding for these spaces, whether it's just to maintain them or if they really want to start a garden and don't have the funds to do so. I've made this document that stays updated with funding opportunities to help them get over that hurdle. And then our Green Schools Recognition Program is one of the primary ways we encourage schools to use their gardens beyond their own motivation to do it. I love this program so much. I think schools love it. It's just a really great way to not even increase just garden-based activities, but all sustainability activities, because this isn't just for our garden section. This includes turning off lights and really just bike to school days, any sort of sustainability related initiative you can think of. Schools can earn points for completing the activities and turning in a form saying they completed it. And then once they reach a certain point total, they earn funding for any sustainability-based project of their choosing. So it doesn't even have to be garden focused. It can be getting a water bottle filler station in their school, or it can be getting a lawnmower or buying more seeds or adding another raised bed. So schools really get into this. And then the top elementary and top secondary schools also get extra funding for their programs as well. This leaderboard that I have on here was updated in January. And as you can see, Holmes is kind of kicking everyone's butt right now. So every year we have 1 or 2 schools that just really go for it and they end up just um, getting really into acting sustainably and we love to see it. So I love this program so much. And then here are some of the gardens focused activities that people can earn points for. So it's literally just maintaining a school garden. You can turn in a form and say, we pulled weeds in our garden with students today, and then you can earn 10 points for that. If you host a family garden night, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you can earn points for that. Or attending any of our garden gatherings or achieving tree campus recognition, those all earn you points to get funding for future sustainability projects, as well as recognition from the sustainability department at the end of the school year. And then we have a garden Slack. The idea for this channel is really just to connect school gardens with other gardens across the district because it can be really easy for them to kind of silo themselves and not know what's going on around the district. So this is just a space to make those connections and then also invite community partners onto this channel to connect with schools and kind of just say like, hey, I'm having a problem growing this. Can anyone tell me how to fix it? Or, hey, I saw this grant opportunity if anyone's interested. So this is just a space for us to kind of collaborate and network about our school gardens around the district. We do a few gardens and outdoor learning outreach events. We don't do too many, but I did include this in here because I wanted to talk about our garden gatherings, which is our primary outreach event for gardens. And they're usually very successful. So we have quarterly events. They're open to the community, to schools, to anyone who wants to come and learn about school gardens around LPS. And they usually have a theme. So we actually just had our last one last Wednesday. And the theme was community partners. So we had a bunch of community partners come and speak about how the resources that they have for school gardens. It was a really great turnout. And then we had a Q&A where schools could say, hey, I'm really wanting to get or I'm really wanting to start a courtyard garden, but I don't know where to start. And it was just a great space to be able to collaborate with each other. We had one in November about courtyard spaces, and we invited a few schools with courtyards to come and talk about how they've been working in those spaces, maintaining them, getting students out in them. So they're really just great opportunities for building connection and collaboration. And then we also go to nature nights. We don't promote or we don't put these on, but we just attend them. They're put on by the Lower Platte South Natural Resources District. So we go to the ones that are at LPS elementary schools and promote our upcoming events. And these are also just a place for us to talk about sustainability initiatives with parents and students and kind of build that connection. You know, they see their garden, they're like, why is that garden there? So we can talk to them about why they have a garden or why they compost in their cafeteria. And then my favorite part about these is that we have sustainability themed activities for students to play. So in the bottom picture, I made a little I Spy board with things in nature. So I put a flower on there and some leaves and a stick and then had students point to whatever I was describing. And then in the corner, we were playing happy plant, sad plant. And so I would ask the kids if trash was good for a plant, and then they would point to if it's good for a plant or bad for a plant. So just some really fun direct interaction with students because we actually don't work directly with students that often. This is one of the few instances where we do. And then family garden nights are also not hosted by us, but we do encourage them. They're hosted by individual schools. So I added a picture from a McPhee family garden night a few years ago, and then a Holmes Elementary one. And Holmes actually does this really cool joint night where they have a family garden night and a bike rodeo to promote bike safety. They give out helmets and kids ride their bikes around and then they can go into the garden and complete a scavenger hunt and they get a little flower for completing the hunt. And it's just a really fun community builder. And also people use these events to almost not force, that's not the right word, but persuade people into helping them either clean up the garden or plant or add mulch or do garden related activities that may need a little extra muscle. So these are really great events and we love to see them. And you can get Green Schools recognition points for them. So that's another bonus as to why schools host these. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the current projects that I'm working on so you can kind of see where we're moving forward. So our current big project that I'm working on is our Farm to School grant that we were awarded in July of 2024 from the USDA, and it is a 2-year long grant. So I'll be working, it'll go past when I leave this position. It includes Kohler, Dawes, and Mickle Middle School, as well as Northeast High School. The overall goal is increasing agriculture education and food access in Northeast Lincoln. Some other individual activities we're doing with this include field trips. So all of the middle school FCS classes and after school garden clubs are taking field trips. So the FCS classes took a field trip to Shadowbrook Farms and they had goats there. I'm very jealous I was not able to tag along for that. But just cool experiences like that to get students out, learning about local producers. They're going to have local producers come and visit them and talk to them about working in the agriculture sector. Another part of it is building and expanding gardens. So Kohler actually doesn't have a garden, and so from this grant, they're getting quite a few garden beds and drip irrigation systems with the help of Kiwanis. Dawes is also getting a few more garden beds as well. And then another part of it is working on fostering a mentorship between the students in Northeast High School and the Dawes, Kohler, and middle school garden clubs. So really just building connections between the schools and then also increasing agricultural education all around these schools. And as you can see, we're working on this on a lot of partners. So Community Crops has been helping us out a lot with making connections with local producers and finding places for schools to be touring and also for local producers to come and talk to them. We've been working with our community learning centers on the school after school garden clubs. Kiwanis has been great help for building the raised beds. So it's really just been a really cool collaborative experience for everyone. And then going with that, we actually have an upcoming event, and I'm gonna promo some events more just to show you what we've been doing rather than expecting you to show up. But we have a local food showcase coming up to show off what we've been doing with the Farm to School grant. So um, all of the middle school garden clubs as well as the high school Fuse program will be there to talk about what they've done so far with this grant, the field trips that they took, and then the local producers who come and visit them. And then fingers crossed, we will have locally grown produce, food, something as part of the local food portion of it. And then that QR code goes to a little video talking more about the field trips that they took. Another project that I'm working on is a tree inventory for LPS. So prior to like late fall last year, we did not have any way of tracking the trees that were being removed or planted on LPS properties beyond what was in the minds of our arborists. And we really wanted to change that and turn it into more of a concrete system for when donors come to us and say, I want to donate a tree to a school, we can tell them, oh, this school really needs a tree, donate it there. Or if a school wants to achieve tree campus recognition, one of the goals is for a hands-on experience, which doesn't have to be tree plantings, but a lot of times that's the route that schools take. We can say, oh, this tree was just removed, you can plant one in this area. And then also just to monitor schools that are most in need of tree plantings, who need to improve their tree canopies. So I've been having really fun on this project, just documenting the tree canopies around the school. Eventually, we're hoping to turn this into some kind of a map with tree species and everything. We are not there yet, but this will be a really cool project to look out for in the future. And then I wanted to also talk about our Students of Sustainability Summit. This is another example of something that we do to engage directly with students. So this is a LPS high schoolers only event coming up in April, where we invite LPS high schoolers to come and collaborate with each other and learn from high schoolers at other schools about what they've been doing in their green clubs, what sustainability initiatives they have going on. And then also collaborate with other organizations around the community. So we're going to have some representation from UNL sustainability there, and hopefully some representation from the city sustainability department as well to kind of just collaborate and learn in a shared space. And then also tour one of our new high schools, which has a lot of cool sustainability features around the area, like the rooftop gardens, and they also have solar panels and some other really cool features. But that was all I had to share. So if anyone has any questions.
Um, sorry, real quick, while we are doing questions, I'm gonna launch the survey.
Yes, we would greatly, greatly appreciate if you could fill out that survey. It helps us with events like this, and we would love your feedback. But like Katie mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We could give you a minute to fill out the poll if you want to do that before you have any questions to put in the chat. I actually have one. Katie, where or like what do you do with any like produce that's grown in the gardens? Like, does it go to the school? Does it go to the students' families? Like, where does it end up?
It's kind of up to the schools to do whatever they want with it. Some schools will donate it to a food pantry. A lot of schools will just say, come and take it. Like if they have produce, they'll let the students take it who are working in the garden, or anyone who's walking by, like at Northeast, I know they literally just leave the food on a picnic table with a sign that says free produce and you can take it. There has been talk about like giving it to students as like snacks, but I don't think any schools have been able to generate enough produce to make that feasible. So, I mean, it's kind of up to the school, but I think it pretty much just gets distributed throughout the community.
Nice. Um, if anyone has any questions, um, someone is asking, do you guys think about using organisms to help naturally clean the ponds?
Honestly, a lot of the pond maintenance is on the schools. I haven't really worked with the ponds, so I'm not sure about that. That would probably be a question better for the schools who have ponds, but I mean, that is a really good idea. I honestly don't even know how they clean them.
And then Coleman is asking, where do you envision the sustainability programs for LPS growing in the next couple of years?
So that's a really good question. I think we want to expand more into the tree realm and working on our tree canopy. That's kind of something we're just now starting. So we've been looking a lot at that, and also expanding our composting program as well. Right now, we only have it in cafeterias and then in school-wide in some schools. So working on expanding that. And then I think just like better documenting what we do have, because it can be really hard to keep track of through all the schools, who has a garden, who's doing this in their space, when it's really just about communicating with each other. So.
For sure. Any other questions that anyone would have? Um, I'll give you guys another minute, but if not, no worries. But also I want to give you time to fill out the survey if you haven't done that as well. Thank you, Katie. This presentation has been very informative. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did as well. I don't think we have any other questions coming through. So that concludes our webinar tonight. If you haven't gotten the chance to fill out the survey, like I just said, we would greatly appreciate it if you took the time to fill it out. If you want to share this with someone who wasn't able to attend tonight, or if you want to watch it again, this webinar will be posted on our YouTube in the near future with all other webinars as well. Thank you so much for attending tonight's webinar and learning more about LPS Gardens. And most importantly, thank you to Katie for this presentation and giving us your time and your talent. Have a great rest of your night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.